Truck Talk Media.
C10 Talk, episode 325. We've got Kyle from Truck Rodeo, kick-ass classic truck social media platform coming at you. Here we go.
And this is what Truck Rodeo is. If I had to define what I wanted to do for a living, this is it, right? And there is plenty of content. And like I said, there's a little bit of truck news going on here, right? Like that truck that fell through the ice in New Jersey a couple of days ago. Like, I'm amazed on how much stuff touches this world that is sort of news in this social world we live in. I'd like to bring that to our attention, and we get a lot of great feedback on that. We have some merchandise plan that I'm trying to put together, and it comes with a whole campaign. Putting a What the Hell is Truck Rodeo campaign together too, right? So I'm looking for creative directors and people who can help with the day-to-day, then also could help with some of the special projects. Again, as we get a little more detailed about the auction recaps and what's going on there, and may turn into a little more of a podcast panel, right? And maybe it's me and someone like you or a Lainey Wilson type who joins that, right? Because everyone has a truck story. So that's in a way future. And sort of what the next sprint looks like is how can we start getting a little more formal about the things we're doing?
Damn, son.
Let me tell you what Melba's Toast is packing right here. All right, we've got 411 posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some bucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man is a television repairman. The ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth clapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Wetch.
What's up, C10 Nation? Coming at you. Jam-packed episode with Kyle Wortham from Truck Rodeo. So, Kyle started this social media platform back in January of 2022 and just hit their 4-year anniversary. He's got over 110K followers, and they do a really good job. You can tell he has a background in marketing and some graphic design because they lay it out really good, and he's in tune and in touch with what's going on in the market, the scene, and looking to expand that exposure. So Kyle and I have had interfaces with each other, Doja Mats, C10 Talk, auctions, and I thought, man, we should really get to know Kyle and the story behind it. So I hope you enjoy it. Been busy. I've already got a couple more recorded and ready to rock, ready to roll. I've got Joe and John from PSI. That'll be next. So that'll be 326 probably. I will get out the Ben Napier. I've been sitting on that. It's actually been like almost a year coming up on that. It's pretty crazy. I can explain why, but when I do drop it, I'll get into the details on what's taken me a little bit too long on that. So, but I've got probably 4 or 5 scheduled, literally scheduled, ready to rock. So gonna get them going and try to knock everything out before we get pretty busy with the reunion. So reunion truck show, March 27th pre-party, March 28th. We're moving it up to Mesa. Going to be a good time. Really stoked about our pre-party venue. It's called the Neon Garden. So the city I grew up in Mesa, they took a bunch of old neon signs and they made a backyard area. So we're going to get together there. It's going to be pretty bitchin'. Really excited about that and our 5th annual reunion truck show. We are inviting some cars this year, and our theme, we've usually had a kind of a style, a theme, is going to be skateboards. So the awards will be decks, and the primetime awards will be actual skateboards. So pretty bitchin'. I've also worked really hard on trying to get some of these videos up to YouTube, the Truck Talk Media YouTube site. I know some of you guys are like, hey, we'd really rather watch the pod than just listen. So I will get those out. I'm going to continue to work on getting the older episodes. If I've got a video that I recorded and we didn't put it on YouTube, it will be downloaded to YouTube. So if you don't follow Truck Talk Media, get on over there, okay? Episodes 320 is Square Body Dave. Then 321 is Andy from Classic Truck Products. That is over on the YouTube. 322, Dave Hall from Restore a Muscle Car. That was pretty much the week of the auction, so kind of getting his pulse on pre-Barrett and stuff like that. Somebody who's really been around the block and dealt with the auctions a lot. 323, CK Truck Mag, kind of a revive, where we've got Patrick, who's coming in new, and then Scott Mason continues to be the editor-in-chief. Then we did a little bonus episode with Ryan Foss from In the Garage Media, Ryan Foss Productions. They did a series, or I guess a episode of the Get Down. So they originally did one last year covering the Triple Crown, and now they've got a great video with some history on Dino's Get Down. So video was put together really, really well. Had a chance to be part of that. So if you haven't checked that one out, make sure you get on their YouTube, check it out. Classic Truck Performance, In the Garage Media, Ryan Foss, great job on that video. 324, sat down with Jason Chandler from AMD, Auto Metal Direct. That's also up on the YouTube. I got those downloaded pretty quick. So check out 324 if you haven't already, either via audio and or over on the YouTube. So the YouTube gives you obviously a few different formats. If you want to listen, you can listen. If you want to watch, you can watch. A lot of times I just plug in, work out, listen that way. Maybe I'm in the shop, I got my earbuds in, but some guys are sitting around, they want to watch it. Give you guys that option. I do like that we're capturing that old school video, so that's pretty bitchin'. Well, now you've got a new one with Kyle. So Truck Rodeo, that will drop right now, and then if you're listening, then I'll get the video up pretty quick on YouTube. Okay? Thank you guys for tuning in. Kyle, thank you so much for taking time to sit down with C10 Talk and the C10 Nation. Love what you're doing. Hopefully we can be part of the future and work with you on some of these different projects. You know, we'd like to. And it was really good getting to know you. Like your vibe, like your style. All right, guys, check them out. Truck Rodeo. It's that easy. Truck Rodeo. Chickadee, check them out. We appreciate it. Have a great week. Late. What up, C10 Nation coming at you. I've got Kyle Wortham. He's out of Missouri. You might not know who's Kyle, but I think with the booming that he's got going on the social media, obviously you've got a lot going. You've got trucks everywhere. For us in the Doja Mat world, because we cross over to some of the Ford stuff as well, definitely we got some Truck Rodeo going here. So Kyle, welcome to C10 Talk. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, and it's always good to talk trucks.
Hey, thanks a whole lot, Ronnie. I love what you're doing and what you're doing for the community. And as we started Truck Rodeo, we were looking for guys like you that we could help support, right? And sort of learn from the community and also amplify trucks and tell good stories about good people and good trucks.
Well, I tell you what, we've got a lot of them. We've got a lot of really good people in our community. I jumped on your webpage and it was cool. I didn't know this, but it looks like you somehow were kind of motivated from the 100 square body auction, which is a buddy of mine. Well, both the guys that put that on were buddies of mine. We've got Big Fish, Todd Carpenter, and then we've got Dave Hall out of Restore a Muscle Car. So you were there and you just saw all these trucks and you're like, dude, I got to do something right now. I got to get active with all this.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was an amazing event, right? So I had seen that there was a little bitty story in USA Today about it. And I, again, like everyone else, was like, wow, this is a big deal, right? How come no one's talking about this? And so I'd sort of been thinking about what to do with trucks, but I went out there. Actually, I got a foster kid, and he was getting ready to go to university at the end of the summer. And so went out actually from Illinois to Nebraska, and they went to Colorado. But went to Grand Island, saw that event, which was amazing. They did 100 square bodies in a day and amazing rigs. And so that was sort of the first inspiration for Truck Rodeo is, again, no one's really talking about this from a seller and a buyer perspective. How can we sort of bridge the gap and give these trucks their due so they get the right value? And so collectors and buyers can get great trucks.
Yeah, and I see you do a lot with Mecum now, so you're definitely found that platform. Did you have a background? Who is Kyle out of Missouri? I mean, did you have a background in marketing? I think you've got a vibe down. You've got that 70s nostalgia, which, you know, I'm a kid of the 70s. We love that. We gravitate towards that style. You've got the buckle as your logo, the 60s, 70s, 80s trucks. I mean, it's a home run.
Yeah, thanks. No, Yeah, I was in marketing before this, right? So I grew up in Missouri. I grew up on a farm, and went to Chicago to make it big in advertising, and actually worked for some of the big time ad agencies, including Leo Burnett, which is the ad agency that has the Marlboro account. So I worked on Marlboro back in the day in the U.S. and Mexico. And then I went to the beer business for marketing as well. So I was the marketing director for Patch Blue Ribbon for about 10 years, and then went to Blue Moon Beer, and to Mike's Hard Lemonade, although I never drank a full Mike's Hard Lemonade without an insulin shot. And then I actually got into the legal cannabis business and helped start some of the big boys in that space, right? Um, and sort of, in a last chapter of my career in that, I was thinking, well, how can I do something that I'm passionate about? And trucks was that. And so again, sort of looking at the landscape and a lot of great collectors and builders, and there was sort of a gap between that and what happens at Mecum or Barrett Jackson, right? Or Bring a Trailer. And sort of how do we sort of tell that story and amplify that? So those trucks that are Bring a Trailer that are buried behind the Maseratis and mini bikes, let's sort of bring them to life a little bit. And so, yeah, that was my background in marketing. Path Blue Ribbon, Schlitz, I brought that back in the day, Lone Star Beer. So I had a pretty good run there. But again, tried to figure out how I could take some of that learning and build it into the truck world a little bit. And as a guy who's always had, old trucks and was flipping them as well, knew there was a market for this, and there was a way to sort of, create some content that was a little more reminiscent of what the West Coast Porsche guys were doing, right? But do it around old high boys in Montana. It's kind of rad. And that's sort of my approach going into it. And it's really paying off in a sense where people sort of understand, like, we're doing a little bit for the truck world, and hey, if we've got a truck that it's $30,000, I don't want to get beat up in my local Facebook marketplace for a $30,000 truck. I can put it on Truck Rodeo, and guess what? I'm not going to get slammed for it. We'll probably appreciate the value a little bit, and people will appreciate it, right? So that's sort of where we're ending up. But again, you say about marketing, yeah, I went from a really sort of corporate structure from brand marketing into, like, how do I use this and this? And one of those things were, only doing trucks and not doing SUVs, and sort of owning the niche a little bit, right? Sort of taking that liquid death approach, or even reminiscent of PBR, right? We'll be the bad beer and we'll own the bad beer space, and we'll be the only tall boy. But guess what? 10 years later, everyone's making canned beer, and they're sort of emulating what Pat's is doing. So started to pry myself a little bit in marketing and seeing some trends and what's going on in the marketplace. Yellowstone effect was a big part of all this as well, right? And sort of helping shape and keeping the integrity of the narrative at its core, right? So guys like you, guys like Kinter Chassis who are building these things, that's what Truck Rodeo was sort of built for.
Oh man, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. It's just it's come full circle, where maybe the trucks didn't get the due that they deserved, or whether they deserved it or not, or whether they cared, they didn't care. The trucks were out there to do what they were supposed to do. They were doing it. And you look at, I mean, it's cool to hear that lineage of, that early years for you, Marlboro Red, Marlboro Light, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. And then you get into PBR, and how PBR was kind of like the redheaded stepchild of beer. And it's like, when you say, hey, well, we own it, and you're going to find those people. And then it becomes, I'm sure there's a marketing term for it, but it becomes cool because it wasn't cool. And that's what's cool about, I have to give the millennials a little bit of, like, I mean, we Gen Xers, we don't really want to give millennials much love, but one thing they have done is they do embrace that what we took for granted, or maybe we lived and then we wanted back again. They've really taken it to a level where I feel like they really want to find high-end quality goods, and they see those old school goods that are reminiscent of when they were really young. And it's cool. And I think that vibe and what you're doing and bringing the trucks to the forefront. Why would you say, again, you've answered it somewhat in the marketing experience, but when you're, I feel like the SUVs are really popular too. Does that water it down with the Blazers, the Broncos, the Wagoneers, the Scouts? You've obviously owned some Scouts. So does that water that down? And have you thought about, SUV rodeo? And I mean, there's a lot out there, and I feel like they're all the same. I don't feel like not calling it a truck versus a Blazer, a Jimmy, a Bronco, a Waggy, something like that. So yeah, go ahead on that one. See what you come up with.
Yeah, no, it's a really great point. And I get a lot of DMs on that, and I get a lot of folks who are like, "Oh, well, it's a fucking Blazer, so why did you put it in your site?" So to answer your question about why only trucks, not SUVs, I get a lot of DMs about that. Folks are, want to know why not. Again, it goes back to being niche, right? And a little bit of like, how much can I manage? I'm one guy and trying to do this, and I know I was biting off really big chunk to chew with just trucks, and to go in the SUV market is a whole. It's extended, but it also gets a little messy. And I know again what I've learned from brands like Liquid Death and Paps is if you do one thing really really well, then you can extend off of that, right? I do think that if you look at the early Instagram posts, early back in the day, I thought, well, heck, Truck Rodeo is dirt bikes, it's SUVs, it's super duty, heavy duty trucks. But we really came back from that a little bit. So I do think there is likely an SUV rodeo or dirt bike rodeo in the future. I'm really happy with what we've done right now, and sort of like I'm finally getting to the point where, and you know how this is, it's being sort of this crazy entrepreneur in the media space, this world we live in now. But trying finally get to the point where those ideas about an SUV rodeo that were in the back of my mind a year ago are like, oh yeah, this can easily be done, right? So I think that'll be coming soon. But I think what's great about this is that trucks that people forget, and again, I feel like we own it, and I don't, own sort of classic trucks a little bit, and I don't know if we could own a larger space right now, and so I'm super grateful for what we have, and I think that's in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, right? So you're like, hey, nobody forgot about the Blazers, the Jimmys, the Broncos, and the Waggies, and especially with the Bronco coming back so strong, you're like, hey, people might have forgot about the High Boy, the Dent Side, the Slick, maybe even the Dodge Swept line, something like that that's not getting quite the love. You want to talk about the PBR of beers, the Dodge Swept line. A Dodge Tin Grill, I mean, they couldn't find love in a truck stop with 10 hookers working there. They couldn't find
It's tough, and I will tell you, they come up once in a while, right? And so, but boy, they're hard to find. But once you do, it's the same thing. Like I think we saw one, I think a Power Wagon 60s model Power Wagon go through Bring a Trailer, brought like 40 grand. It was like pristine, right? No one was talking about it, and that's I think it was one of the highest prices on that model. But you're totally right. Like some of those sleeper trucks, international D models, I'm in love with them right now, right? Like you start to $2,500. Now they're creeping up $6, $7, $8, $9, $10, $11, $12,000 for these old internationals. And so that's where my heart is too. You're right. It's like, how do you give love to those trucks that no one thinks about, but also everyone's got a connection to, right? Whether it be an old Dodge or whatever. That's a great thing about Truck Rodeo too. And I was having this conversation the other day is everyone, no matter who you talk to, has a connection to a pickup truck, right? No matter if you own one or not, but you sat in the cab of that thing and you know what was going on. It was a whole different experience. It was simple, and you felt like, you got your hair tingling a little bit, right? When you jumped in the truck with your old man and went to the feed store, or when you were with your grandfather and turning on the radio station, right, to 61 Country in Kansas City, Missouri, like me. But it's sort of cool, like everyone could talk to that. And I don't know, there's a lot of other cultures like that, right? Porsche is certainly not. Motorcycles, not really, but it always ends with a bad story. But pickup trucks is one thing. Everybody's like, yeah, I had one, or I was a part of one. And it's kind of cool to make those connections.
I think I know you just by perusing your stuff, you like the old school vintage motorcycles. I feel like part of that too, and again, there's obviously some subcultures within, but whether or not you were sitting there with your grandpa, your uncle, your dad, I talk about this. I mean, I've talked about this pretty much my whole life, is how we were brainwashed. Sitting shotgun for me, it was sitting shotgun with my dad, looking at that dash emblem, and that was just the place to be. So I also feel like, though, there was, especially in the small town I grew up in little Laurel, Montana, there was people that had some big trucks, and man, you don't think about it, but when you're looking at a truck, you're like, man, I always wanted one of those, or I always want one. And And so maybe you didn't have a truck, or your grandpa or your dad, but somewhere, somehow, some guy driving. I mean, an easy example would be like a flying high Toyota, right? So I moved from Montana to Mesa, Arizona, which was where the flying high truck was. So we would go by flying high, and we would see that 80s Toyota jacked up on monster wheels, so on and so forth. I mean, Bigfoot would be an example.
Exactly.
Because I was such a Chevy guy. I always liked barefoot and the square body. And so I didn't want to be Bigfoot because I liked barefoot, which was the competitor. But I just feel like there's so many things there. Everybody's got a story. Does it come back to that 60s and 70s metal? And we're finding that. And then that metal now is moving towards the 80s and the 90s. A girl did a post the other day, man, I'm going to send it to you if you haven't seen it, but she breaks down. She's young and she's sassy, and she breaks down. She's like, you realize that my OBS is like what the 70s model was to you, and so on and so forth to the general audience. And I always think about that. I'm like, okay, a 72 Chevy when I graduated in 92 was 20 years old. And now we are at that same point right now. So the 06 Duramax, the 06 NBS, the end of the NBS is now at that 20-year mark for a 2026er. And we don't think that that's necessarily that old. An NBS, 99 for the Chev guys, the 99 to 06. And it is, and it's to that 20-year mark. And you're like, wow, this is at 20 years now. It's kind of that Back to the Future effect where you're like, hey, that's further away than you really think it is.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's hard for me to get there. And again, seeing a parking lot full of old pickup trucks, that was an old pickup truck. They, half of them ran, or you needed to know how to work on them, and you need to know your way around them. An OBS, I don't think you do, right? And that's part of why I can't register. Is like, oh, throw me the keys, I could drive 1,000 miles in it and not worry about it, typically. But old F100 or a CK line is kind of tough, So anyway, that's where my head is. But you're exactly right. On the flip side of that, though, again with this truck show we threw in Phoenix, which was amazing, guys like Cam Twister, who drove that old '67 F100 out from Springfield, Missouri, right? Or Speed Bump Garage, Ethan, who runs that Highboy. Like, there's a lot of folks who I think they're listening to Led Zeppelin or Guns N' Roses, and it's like there's this weird thing for me when I'm like, wow, it skipped a generation. You guys picked up right where I left off. And so to see that's pretty cool. But also, yeah, you're right. Getting into like, hey, OBS Chevys were cool. And they do have a pretty rad design to them. And those step side are cool, right? And starting to see those come back a little bit. And it's been slower for me to get there. But as the prices prove, things are coming, right? Bullnoses are on the rise. OBSs, you can't, crazy. OBS sold on the ag auction site yesterday. It was 93, 77,000 miles, F-250 out of Iowa. It went for 20 grand. Nothing special about it. Plenty of rust, Iowa truck. So, you start to see that and you're like, because back to what we just talked about, that's the experience that the people with a little extra cash in their pocket right now remember. I remember when in my 30s, I was flipping a lot of trucks, and then, it was fun. And I think I'm starting to see that from folks who are reaching that age, and the trucks they gravitate towards are those 25-year-old trucks and not 55-year-old trucks.
Well, and just so we make sure for my audience, OBS isn't just Chev. I know you might think that it is. I see a lot of arguments online where people think, oh, that's not a Chevy, it can't be an OBS. And it's like, OBS just stands for old body style. So, and whether you know this or not, Kyle, I'll share this with you. The term OBS comes from, and to refresh my audience, put you on the spot here. Do you know where it comes from? Do you know why there is the OBS term?
I don't know off the top of my head, but this sounds like a great article for Truck Rodeo. I'd love to know.
Okay, so vintage air, 50 years, 1976 to 2026, San Antonio, Texas. Whether your truck had AC or not, Vintage Air has a solution for you and your project. Their Gen 5 SureFit kits feature new, larger blowers, OEM-style injected molded cases, full electronic slide controls, replacing older cables, allowing for smooth slide functions when changing flow and temp. And that, my friends, is why Vintage Air has been in business for 50 years. VintageAir.com. USA1Industries.com. Your square body source. Use them for my SEMA build. I've been pimping out their dashes for so long, 10 plus years. And people would always ask me, where's the best dash pad? USA1 Industries, without a doubt. So the team over there has been so supportive to me, my build. I get on their website, their process, it's easy, it flows. I can know what parts. And sometimes, honestly, I'm not even sure what parts I need, but when I go through the website, it kind of cues my mind. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should buy that. Oh yeah, I need that. It was extremely helpful. I got 2 large shipments when I was doing the Big Sky Bonanza build, and it saved me. It really did, to know, oh yeah, I'm glad that I ordered that. So when you're going through a big build, think USA1 Industries. Great support, fast shipping. Everything came just as I needed it to. And honestly, their packaging and their labeling was great. So I would be going through packages and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is this grommet. Oh yeah, this is this hardware. So support those guys, USA1Industries.com. We appreciate all their support. Check them out, guys. 73 to 91. You need it. They got it. They ain't got it. You don't need it. The term OBS comes from, and to refresh my audience, put you on the spot here. Do you know where it comes from? Do you know why do you know why there is the OBS term?
I don't know off the top of my head, but this sounds like a great article for Truck Rodeo. I'd love to know.
Okay, so the reason why it's OBS is you think about the forums. So truck forums for me, that was 6772 ChevyTrucks.com. That's my truck porn before I got into social media. And we were all there. So everybody was on a forum when you think about the internet days. And then when did computers kind of become generalized? A lot of us, that's 97, 98, 99. You're getting an at-home computer. You're getting on a forum. Well, Fords came out new in, so you've got your new Ford coming out like 97. And then for Chev, you've got your 98s. So you got your new trucks kind of coming out there. I mean, so you're 88 to 98. So for Chev, it's 88 to 98. It's ending. So 99 is the new, your NBS. Well, that's where that comes from. So people would be online, and then because you think about it, it's not an old body style at all. It's not old at all. But because the forums were right then, people would say, oh, that's an old body style. And then Ford's new body style, which is the Aero line. And then Chev's new body style, which is your 99 to 06, which cat eyes are at the end. But then that's kind of where that new body style. So that's your OBS, old body style. That's your NBS, new body style. And you could really apply that to even like a Dodge if you think about it, and kind of how that works. But for Chev and Ford, OBS is going to be your, for Ford, I always kind of classify it as the OJ style, where you've got that. So you've got your OJ style. Chev, obviously, you've got your CK truck as an OBS, which is going to be your, when you think about your 88, obviously going up. And that's another weird thing for the Chevs is the trucks came out in 88, but the SUVs didn't come out until 92. So you can have a 91 Blazer Jimmy Suburban sitting next to an 88 truck that is new. So there's some crazy stuff going on there, but I'm sure you're aware of that perspective, that the crew cabs, the dualies, the Suburbans, the Blazers, the Jimmys, they all stayed from 88 all the way to 91. And then, 92, all the OBS style came out. So it is a weird time, but I think I just love that the younger guys are, because there's times where you think it's not going to continue. And you're like, I'm worried about this. Is it going to continue? And you see these, I do see, because of the Doja Mat background that I have, the Ford guys the younger guys are really gravitating to some of those long bed 4x4 Fords. They really are. They're really popular. Do you feel like in Missouri, and with your travels, is there a regional perspective to all this where you're in Missouri, a lot of farm trucks? Is there more Fords? I've had this discussion with Solomon, who runs the Ford era, and he says, a lot of the Iowas, the Missouris, maybe the Nebraska, a lot more Fords, whereas maybe coastally, I don't know. I wonder what your perspective is, high to low, east to west, and what you see in your travels.
Yeah, 100%. And that's great question. What I see, and again, sort of growing up in this a little bit, which lends to the insight, is a lot of these truck dealers were single point or were bolt-ons to tractor dealerships, like in the Midwest, at least from my experience, right? And so you grow up in a county that's a Chevy county, Chevy
So
family.
explain that. So there's a tractor dealership in Kansas City or something like that, and right next door to that guy, whether that's his brother, his cousin, the Montgomerys, side of the family owns the tractor dealership, and the other side of the family owns maybe the truck dealership.
100%. You could buy a combine and you could buy a square body at the same dealership a lot of times. And
Yeah.
so that's a lot of it's just sort of the concentration of dealerships and where they are, right? Again, and I grew up on a farm in Missouri. You come from, my dad drove Chevys, and most of the county was a little more Chevy leaning. A couple counties over, a little more Ford, but they had a Ford dealership that had been there. That was part of I don't know what tractor dealership, probably Ford, right? And so you start to see that happen a little bit. So, and also the other thing is you start to see those trucks rushed out. And so when you come to think about the vintage and classic market, it's like what's available from that too. So again, in Missouri, there's less Fords available than Chevys, and the Fords are all rusted out. Most of the Chevys are rusted out too. So you're left with bottom of the barrel is the wrong phrase, but what's left is some slim pickings, and you have to build from that. But to answer your question, like we went up to Minnesota to shoot some ag stuff for Purple Wave auction. And those old boys, first of all, you're young farmers in their 20s, which is amazing to see. But they're running old C6500 Chevrolet grain trucks and things like that, right? It all comes from the same place, and they become a blue Chevy guy along the way. And so that's what I see a little bit, that it's a little more regional based on the culture, and also based a little bit on the dealership pattern and how that sort of relates to some of the core culture and work that was agriculture during the day.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I know Orange Slice, which is my 76 Impact, it was bought at a GMC commercial, same. It's no longer there in Montana. It was outside of Great Falls. Some guy was, had a GMC big truck tractor, so something like that, where I could see that being the case. And now, correct me if I'm wrong with your experience and what you think, but what I've seen over our generation is the small dealerships, the big conglomerate of Chevy, Ford, Dodge now, which is, I don't know, Sinclair, whatever the hell that, whatever Dodge is, starts with an S now. I can't remember.
Stellantis.
Yeah, Stellantis. So they've kind of shut down those smaller dealerships where you would have a smaller mom and pop style dealerships. Those have kind of gone away. I think the bigger branding has really shut those down to push towards the bigger metropolitan areas, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I also think you'll start to see a little more direct to consumer. And that's what International Scout doing with that new thing too. Dealers are up in arms about it. At the same time, if I'm going to order a brand new $120,000 truck, well, it better be what I read about it, right? And so, yeah, I can drive at the dealership, but dealership doesn't need to have 30 of them on the lot, right? Just send it to me. I'm good. So I think there's a little bit of efficiency there, but it's a weird time going on in that landscape. But to the point we were just talking about, we're starting to see a lot more classic trucks in those lots too. Like those are sort of the loss leader, or the build some buzz, right, to bring those things in and put them in the showroom, and then you have the 69 K10 there, and then go out and buy a brand new 2500.
Well, they draw the people in, right? Those guys, some of those guys want a little bit of both, and it'd be kind of crazy to think that eventually you might have a dealership that's selling new on the left and some classics on the right. And we're not talking about just the used car, Honda Accord trade-in. We're talking about some classic trucks that are going to draw people in, because what a good way to do that. what are you seeing in the market? You watch the market, you're really intuitive on that with the auctions, and I feel like that's a big part of what you've got going on. What are you seeing in the market? Good, bad? We've got you alluded to it a little bit. The Scout's coming back. If you guys didn't realize, Volkswagen bought Scouts will be electric to start. I don't know if they'll ever change that, but that was the big push, obviously, a few years ago, manufacturing wise. And so the first generation of rebranded Scouts is electric. And then you've got the Rivian stuff. You've got the Bronco coming back so strong and really adding to the old Bronco. What are you seeing from the classic market? What's hot, what's cold, what's doing well?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of it is sort of in your backyard and what you're doing, right? Like 67 to 72 K10s are screaming hot, screaming hot, easily delivering six figures every day. I don't know if I mentioned this, but about 24 trucks went through auction in January. All of those, I'm sorry, 24 trucks went through auction in January doing more than $100,000. And a majority of those were 67 to 72 K10s. So short bodies are kicking it hard. Then square bodies are super hot too. Anything with a short bed square bodies, super hot. Anything with a crew cab. I mean, except for that one crew cab we have in Florida that is the Frankenstein crew cab with the two cabs welded together. But anything with the crew cab right now, Ford is on fire, and of course, square body crew cabs are killing it too. Square body crew cabs bringing easily 100 grand at auction, and we're starting to see OBSs are carrying right. There's a little bit. I don't know if you see a low mile OBS, it's going to go right. I feel like there's a pretty steady band there. It's raising. We did just amplify the one that sold on Bring a Trailer, that 97 with 17,000 miles.
Ford?
Yeah, 250.
Okay, a Ford. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I think the OBS Ford stuff actually brings a little bit more money than the Chevy OBS. I feel like there's so much more of the Chevy OBS. I feel like the Ford Crew Cab 4x4, maybe even a 7.3, because that was kind of where they switched over. 99 is going to be your Super Duty. Whereas, before that, I guess, I don't know if they actually had I don't think they actually called it the Super Duty yet, but the older body style crew cab, short bed 4x4 with a 7.3, hard to beat that.
Absolutely. Indestructible, right? And so I think low mile examples of that are going for big dollars, and there's a little bit of a bounty on those, right? And then I think you're starting to see bullnoses come a little bit, right? And we just talked about it, but there was one went from Mecum that I think it was around high 20s, high 30s, just a regular pawpaw bullnose. And so that's where you're starting to see those a lot more available, and you can pick them up for $5,000 if you're lucky. And if you set them up nice, and they're usually big 460 big blocks, I'm starting to see those a little bit more and more. And then, like I said, I think little bitty creeps on in the international world on the D series, some too. I'm starting to see those in sort of little trading groups. But the OBS, you're right. OBS Fords are with Power Stroke, can't beat them. Easy trade. But yeah, it's an interesting market right now. But yeah, crew cab Fords were hot last summer. And anything that's a 67 to 72 C10 or K10. It doesn't matter if they're converted or anything. That's the other thing that blows my mind, right? It's like, oh yeah, well it was a C10, but and that makes sense because again, I think there's a little more professional work that goes into those conversions in the last few years than there used to be.
Meaning
right?
Converted to 4x4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm amazed by all those that on the Mecum or Barrett Jackson auctions pages, it's a C10, but it's 4x4, and then you got to read deeper and it doesn't really mention it. Like, well, who did the conversion, right? So that's interesting, but regardless, they're going for six figures.
I've broke this down a few different times. I feel like, so obviously my audience, Chevy, 67, 72, squares. When you look at the auction, it seems like the 4x4s do better. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but what's crazy is the two-wheel drives potentially will take more work to get to a certain level of height and cutting and airbags and different things like that, versus when you lift it, okay, 2.5. I always kind of just say your 2.5 is 33, your 4 is 35, your 6 is 37 tires. So you can lift up and you're not having to get too crazy. There's a lot of components and things available. Do you feel, what would be your perspective on value and why 4x4s tend to do better at auctions versus something that might be slammed or lowered? Or do you feel that? I do feel that way. What's your perspective on it?
My perspective, and I don't follow the slams a lot. I actually, a guy let me drive his at the truck show in Phoenix, and I was blown away. But so the notch frames, those and slam trucks, I think they're going for big dollars. I think there's a big range though, and I think that depends on the builders and also the audience that happens to be there, right? So it's a really, really interesting point. I think it's not a unique audience, but it's a different audience than the 4x4 crew, right? And I think it maybe goes back to that lineage you have with the truck. Well, that four-wheel drive was what I remember. A picture is my grandpa's truck. That slams C10 is gonna, it's pretty rad, but I've never seen anything like it, and it's orange. So I think that may have a little bit to do with it. But your point about there's a lot more work that has to go into a two-wheel drive slam truck than a lift kit on a 4x4 and just to, shine it up a little bit. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense why there would be more. And also, if you do slam those trucks, there's usually obviously, your horsepower is jumped up a little bit, and those are built trucks too. So I don't know.
A lot of money goes into them. I don't know that people are always going to get the money out if they're building it to sell it. You got to kind of keep it a little more uniform. One thing I think is just curious to talk is I have some old like Nylon, like trucks, right? Metal square when we were kids.
Yeah.
And this one right here is avocado with baby shit yellow on top, which is Spanish gold or ochre. So can you imagine taking like an old, whether it's a Ford, a Chev, and that avocado color, that medium olive, your ochre, can you imagine a new truck showing up with one of those colors? But we're so drawn to that old style color in those old trucks. So it's weird that the mind sees it and it's like, this is completely acceptable. I love this. I want this, like this. Yet if you were to put that, and I think some of the new companies, the Cadillacs, the Rivians, some of those new, they have some amazing paint colors, but Volkswagen, but I feel like, can you imagine a new truck with that old color?
No, you're exactly right, and that's a really good point. And something I'm trying to put together in Truck Rodeo is just to go deep into those colors and why they were so cool. And that's part of what I'm sure, like you, I can spot an old truck, in a busy interstate highway or across a mountain and in a pasture, right? And usually from the color, because that's the identifier to me. It's like, oh, that's an ochre. That's got to be old. I don't know what it is yet, but that's So I love those old colors, and you see them, like you see some of the Broncos, or maybe even Ford puts them on Broncos now, the boxwood green that they used to use. And it's really rich and it's cool, but you're right, it doesn't have the same nostalgia feel that you see from an old Bronco or an old truck. So I'm with you. And I think you start to see I remember seeing some two-tones Chevys that were trying to do something with the paint scheme back to square bodies. And they always look weird and odd. And like first I'm like, cool. And then I'm like, right? So I don't know. You're right. It's something that those old trucks own and can't be duplicated. And even when they're redone with new paint, it still feels just a little off sometimes, right? The old stuff just feels a little more pure.
Oh, for sure. And you're right. They did that like the 2018, which kind of looks like a square body in the Chev world. They were doing that with some trim and they were doing that, they were trying to put some faux trim, give it the two-tone, and it looked cool, and it made a little shock and awe for a little bit, but then you're like, no, just go back to but again, you bring up a point where I do see some of the newer colors going back on some of the older stuff. And sometimes it looks really cool where they'll give it that modern motif, or maybe a newer, again, like the Rivian has some crazy colors. So doing that on maybe a 69 to 72 Blazer. But when you see that old color, it just, another color It's like light yellow. I call it grapefruit, but it's a grapefruit yellow. You'll see it on trucks and Blazers, 69 to 72, 67, 72. Um, and you look at that and you're just like, I could never, I mean, nobody would ever buy a vehicle that was that color now, but if it's on that old truck, it's acceptable and it's actually desired.
Totally. Or like U.S. Forest Service trucks as well, that old green. You're from
Yeah.
Montana. You see them everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And you know right away that guy bought it at auction, and he probably got something that was well maintained and it's going to do what it was built to do.
Yeah, exactly. We even have them out here in Arizona. We have the Tonto National Forest right here behind us. And so we have a lot of those forest trucks that'll pop up on auction and you'll see them and you're like, nobody would purposely paint that color. So it's got to be old Forest Service truck. And
it's what they had the most of, was the cheapest paint in the factory, and that just turned out that way.
must be what they did. They're like, hey, well, we can see this color a mile away and it's green. So we've got an abundancy of it. Let's go ahead and paint all these trucks this color and see what happens. So yeah, that'd be an interesting thing. Um, so I saw recently you guys put out some, hey, we're looking for some creative people. What's the plan for Truck Rodeo? What are you looking to do as we get into 2026 here? How can the C10 Nation be involved? What can we help you with? What's your 1 year plan, your 5 year plan? And I think that's fun stuff, because what you're doing for the market and the community is another entity of bringing people together. And whether it's through trucks and whether it's through metal, one of the sayings I have is the trucks are cool, but the people are cooler. And you're adding to that by bringing more people together through whether a social media or a website format.
Thanks for saying that. No, as what we're doing is not always easy. There's highs and lows, and right, this is a kind of my full-time gig right now, right? And so, I'm grateful for how the community has reached out to me, and we sort of hand-picked trucks off of Marketplace and eBay and Brain Trailer to sort of give some attention to early on, and the DMs we got from the folks that trucks we listed were amazing, right? They were like, this is super cool. Didn't know this existed. This is rad. And they automatically knew they were in sort of like, hey, this is different than what I'm used to. And so I want to keep building on that a little bit, right? Sort of a little more curated, elevated experience there. We do list trucks. We're amplifying trucks that are on Bring a Trailer and going to auction. And I think that's where we're starting to really find real value. There might have been a time 2 years ago where I thought we could be a truck Bring a Trailer, but Bring a Trailer's got a pretty good thing going, right? But what they've done is they have built for a website that is about supercars, and they haven't invested a whole lot in social media, right? And so I kind of went into this thinking that's a little bit of a deficiency for some of these big auction sites and different things like that. And so coming out of that, we sort of, we own trucks a little bit that are high end that are going to market. And so to do more of that, and so we are turning on amplification. So, guys like you, they're like, hey, I just took 18 months building this incredible truck. Now I got to do a TikTok skit to sell it, right? We want to be the TikTok skit. We want to help bring those to life a little bit. And that's sort of where we're finding real values, is amplifying those trucks, a little more before Bring a Trailer says, oh, 2 days before the end of your auction, we'll put we'll post it, right? We get 10 days in front of it, give it ample time to ramp. And our postings, by the way, kind of killing it in the sense where we get about 96% truck reach. And what's that mean? Hey, same truck that we feature on Truck Rodeo that's on Bring a Trailer. Great example of this is that old international fire truck I went through. Bring a Trailer posted on their on their website, 7,000 views. We got 700,000 views, right? So if you're selling that truck, you're like, maybe I could give Truck Rodeo $250 to beat the bushes on this a little bit, 10 days before the auction closes, and not 2 days before that. And that's sort of where we're providing value. So with where we're going in 2026, a little more curated in the sense of talking about trucks, but talking about stories about trucks and getting deeper into that. Also working a little more with those auction companies, right? The Meekums and the Barrett Jacksons of the world. How do we really support what they're doing, which is not a big part of their portfolio, but it's an important part, right? And so how do we keep guys like you and the buyers happy and being able to see what's going through versus happen to see it on Motor Trend TV at the time it's going through, right? And so that's what we're trying to do, is really amplify how can we support and create a little more value for big auction sites, and also sellers and buyers who are looking to advertise on those big auction sites like Bring a Trailer.
Well, ultimately, when all these vehicles get a higher reach, they sell for more potentially, which everybody's going to get the juice, right? The auction's going to get the juice. The seller's going to get more juice, and you're that intermediate where you're helping that kind of flow together. And I see that where it's like, hey, we have the reach. This is our, like you even said with the PBR, it's like, this is our folks. They're looking for these type of vehicles. We're known for this, so we are trying to make sure that we know, or we continue to let people know when they wake up, they're looking at Truck Rodeo. They want to see what's available. But I also feel like you have to have a little bit of a balance, and you do, with not just, hey, every one of these is for sale. It's also a branding of, oh man, a vibe, a level of, hey, these are cool, and we need our people to know that they're cool and want them because they're cool. So I don't know that I'm got the best verbiage on that, but I feel like you're doing that as well. So it's there's a lifestyle there, there's a vibe there, and you with your classic 72 Suzuki 125 in the back of a truck, and that era and that style, yeah, the little Yamaha, yeah. So I think that, what is that, like an 80, 78?
It's an 86 IT 200.
Okay, yeah. That's rad. I love it because they switched over, right? So they were yellow up until like 82, I think, yellow and black, and then I think they switched over, right? Man, it might have been like 84.
78, I think, is they went to blue, and then they did a white in 78 and 79, and then they stopped making them in 86.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny how they switched the color. For some reason I thought they were yellow and black until like 80.
Oh, the YZs were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
they're always yellow and black. This is a weird enduro bike.
So you're going to get you've got a whole wormhole of just that passion of those two. So anyway, it's like a lifestyle. It's more than just, hey, here's this truck, it's for sale. Obviously I saw you post Dell's Apache, and that did very well. That marketing and really taking it to the next level, that level of marketing, and your marketing background from, I mean, just high prolific companies that know what's going on and drawing those people in. So what you're doing seems to be working. I know you put out a post, hey, we're looking for some folks to come on board, and it looked like you got a pretty good response. Hey guys, are you thinking about swapping out your old motor for a more reliable LSLT based power plant? Behind each PSI harness, you get over 10 years of experience in the business, online tech support, phone support, and harnesses made in the U.S. That's psiconversion.com. Have you guys heard of Doja Mat? Retro mats done right. You know those classic floor mats we all grew up with? Well, Doja Mat has created that same classic style with all of your favorite slogans. Dent side, bull nose, 4x4, high boy, bump side, truckin', with the horns, of course, and so much more. Check them out at dojamat.com. That's DOJAMAT.com. Dojamat.com. Retro mats done right. You've heard me talk about my gauges. Dakota Digital. I love them. Dakota Digital has the best gauges for our trucks. These kits are complete with sensors for any engine. They look just like the stock clusters, but have all the technology you'd expect from Dakota Digital. It's like a modern truck, but even better in a classic. Dakota Digital is absolutely the best in aftermarket gauges, so check them out at dakotadigital.com. dakotadigital.com. Just high prolific companies that know what's going on and drawing those people in. So what you're doing seems to be working. I know you put out a post, hey, we're looking for some folks to come on board, and it looked like you got a pretty good response.
The response was amazing. And again, if I had to, and this is what Truck Rodeo is, if I had to define what I wanted to do for a living, this is it, right? And thank God I have a supportive wife and a mortgage company that's like, okay, we kind of get it. I'm kidding, but yeah, you're right. So I'm a one-man show. There is plenty of content, and like I said, there's there's a little bit of truck news going on here, right? Like that truck that fell through the ice in New Jersey a couple of days ago. Like, I'm amazed on how much stuff touches this world that is sort of news in this social world we live in. I'd like to bring that to attention, and we get a lot of great feedback on that. So that day-to-day stuff is like a grind, and also we're still trying to focus on how do I go and shoot Kinter's creamsicle in Iowa, that sort of stuff. We have some merchandise plan that I'm trying to put together, and comes with a whole campaign. Putting a what the hell is Truck Rodeo campaign together too, right? So I'm looking for creative directors and people who can help with the day-to-day, then also could help with some of the special projects. Again, as we get a little more detailed about the auction recaps and what's going on there, and may turn into a little more of a podcast panel, right? And maybe it's me and someone like you or a Lainey Wilson type who joins that, right? Because everyone has a truck story. So that's in a way future. And sort of what the next sprint looks like is how can we start getting a little more formal about the things we're doing. And also, if you were my wife, you would ask, how's this thing make money, right? We want to work with brands who can help sponsor this content. I've been lucky enough the people who reached out in this community are insanely nice. Eli and Kalispell has been so great for us. He was looking to sell an old first gen Cummins 2 years ago. Turns out he has a bunch of high boys and a great truck collection. He's like, hey, come out to, our farm in Kalispell and let's shoot some fun stuff. And he's the 6th generation Montanian and totally got Truck Rodeo. Amazing stuff like that it's helped us sort of keep where we're going. And so we want to do more things like that. But that also I'm not a photographer, right? I invest in all this stuff and have to a certain point. But how do we do more of it and get a little more focused on that? I also want to go deeper into some of the fire and rescue trucks that we're starting to see. So we have a lot of stuff planned for 2026, merchandise, a little more deeper into auctions in a formal way, and then some ownership stories, as well as some possible road trips.
Yeah. And then, really the marketing or the media of the road trips is a cool thing. And I think that's, there's always a story, right? Every truck has a story, and the person or persons that is behind that. That's kind of what we've been able to build. I mean, this platform based upon is just every truck's got a story, and it is a fun. I obviously gravitate towards the Chev GM side, but I love the stories of all the stories from, my grandpa's truck. My grandpa actually had a Ford. And when I was a kid, now my uncle got it with 13,000 miles. And then he gave it to my cousin. She married. And so it's in that family now. And they do it, take it to parades in Montana. And so it's pretty cool that this truck, but again, it all goes back to my grandpa took us fishing in this truck. My grandpa on the other side took us fishing in his truck, and this is what we did, and this is the story. So there's always a story, and I think it's just bringing it to the forefront. We love it. We love what you're doing. So you personally, you've got a few different trucks. You grew up, it sounds like your family might have been more Chev, but then I see you owning some different Fords. What's on the horizon for you? Do you ever have time to really get behind a truck? Do you find that when you're on the Missouri marketplace, you're having to have some restraint to not buy up all these trucks, or what's the parking lot look like over at the Kyle's Collections?
They're a little spread out right now, but so yeah, I'm a Chevy guy early on, and my old man used to drive a 68 C10. It was white, and he used to chew Red Man tobacco too. And so he would lean out to the driver's side and spit. There's a whole fan of Red Man tobacco that would fan down the length of the truck, and that's one of the pristine memories I have of my old man. So I grew up like a Chevy. And then I moved from Missouri to Chicago to get into advertising, right? And worked for some of the big time ad agencies. And I would jet down to like Southern Illinois or Missouri and buy an old $5,000 farm truck and bring it back to Chicago, drive it for the summer, and then sell it to a brewery or a barbershop or something like that. And so that's sort of how I got into it. And so Chicago, it ain't tough to eat. It ain't easy to have trucks either, right? Like I was renting garages all over the city. Again, I'm downtown Chicago, high rise, corporate ad agency sort of stuff. And so I rented garages all over the city, and would have 3 or 4 at a time. Again, big Scout guy as well. I also had that 66 Slam C10, which I love, man. That was my favorite truck. Her name was Dottie West. But right now, I have, we're in Florida, so we were bouncing back and forth between Chicago and Florida. We're in Florida right now. So I've got a 72 F100 that's currently in Los Angeles. I've got a 77 Scout Traveler that's in the garage. I've got an 84 F250 that's on its way from Montana to me. That's getting sorted out in between, which is a whole other thing. And a bunch of motorcycles, I think is what I have right now. So yeah, what's on the horizon? I'm really excited about getting this F250 here. My dream truck is pretty much where your head is, my guess is, probably harkens back to my old man, but, 67 to 72 K10, just perfectly done and lifted right. And that's it. You don't need much more than that.
Yeah, they are a sexy truck for sure. So, what year is the truck coming from Montana? 84?
84 F250 Super Cab.
Okay.
It was, speaking of U.S. Forest and our Forest Service, it was a volunteer search and rescue truck out of Kalispell.
Oh, okay. So obviously Eli hooked you up on that. He came across that. So
no, Cowboy Classic did out of Oregon.
Okay. So another thing, just for my audience, again, Super Cab is not crew cab. Super Cab is extra cab, and
exactly
we would call them a Super Cab. So that 84, that's a bullnose, correct? Or is it brick? That's a bull. Okay, so 84 is a bull, and that should be about the end right there, where there's a body style change. A lot of vacuum line issues on those four.
Oh my gosh, I'm already in it. I haven't even seen it. I'm already into it. So you're right.
They're just not the motor. Did it have 351 in it? Being a Super
no, this
Cab?
is 460.
Okay, 460 because it's a 4x4, 4x4 Super Cab, long bed, right? So they didn't make a short bed. They made a Super Cab, which is an extra cab, and they made them long bed, and it's a 4x4. And then what color?
This is, again, search and rescue, butterscotch brown. Everything's deleted on it. It's got a base AM radio. It's got no rear seat in Super Cab.
Standard?
Barely has floor mats.
Standard?
Yeah, 4-speed.
Okay.
Perfect for where I am in Florida, and no AC.
I know a guy who can hook you up with some floor mats. Yeah. So then you've got a truck out in Cali, and then where's the Scout?
And the Scout's in my garage. So I bought a 77. I'm a Scout guy. I got into it maybe 15 years ago. I've had a few. And again, sort of seeing those trends early on, and that was one I picked up on. But I've had a few and bought this 77 Scout Traveler that I'm slowly turning into a Scout Terra. So if you're familiar with those.
Kind of longer, they're a bigger.
Exactly. It has a long wheelbase. I've got a half cab, single cab fiberglass that looks like a pickup. And I've also got a topper for it. They only made a few of those, but when they sold them, and this one, I guess this was a special deal for this topper. It's called an Airway topper. An Airway was like a Dick's Sporting Goods back in the 70s in northern Indiana area. And so the Scout dealers had a deal with the Dick's Sporting Goods of the day to give away one of these toppers. I think they made 1,500 or so, but they're really rare. And I happen to have one in my garage. I'm sanding down right now and put it on there. If you follow anything Scout and those guys out of Iowa, they'll come across a few once in a while. But yeah, my 77 International Scout's cool. It's got a 345 in it. It's pretty tired, but it's a good rig. My wife likes, rolling around it where we are in Florida right now with the top off and cruising. But it's one of my best driving trucks. That 72 F100 in California is super reliable, though. And that came from, I bought that when I was in Chicago. I bought it out of Washington to Chicago. I moved to Washington. It came with me. Moved it back to Chicago. Went to LA. That's where it is now. So I do a lot of transport, too.
Yellow one? Is it yellow? Kind of a yellowish color? Okay.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, that would look really cool as a high boy. Okay, so Scouts, for the audience, Scouts, little Scouts are like babies. They're like a little first-gen Bronco. Scout 2, you get a little bit bigger wheelbase, and then your Traveler is, not a Travel All, which is like a Suburban, but a Traveler's pretty big. Yeah, and then anything Scout. I've actually been up to Ames and visited with those guys. What a cool collection they have for the audience. If you want to follow a really fun page, New Legend 4x4 is what he calls it. So they've got their own brand of builds, and then they do a lot of parts as well. So anything Scout. So yeah, you, like all of us, have a problem. you don't know what you like and you want it all. And it's hard to manage between time and money and obviously having a really good understanding wife who somehow had a dad, a grandpa, an uncle that also had this crazy shit lying around, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is normal," because my wife is very understanding and acceptable, whereas some of my buddies' wives would just not allow half of this shit, and not even a quarter, not even an eighth. I've got one buddy. I hate to even say this because I doubt he'll ever listen, or his wife would, but he calls her the dream killer. he's, he's like the dream killer over there. And we're like, holy shit. We were at Barrett, obviously a couple weeks ago, and he's like, and he really likes the Lincolns, which you want to talk about what's hot. My God, those Lincolns. And he's like, and he's done well. And he's like, nope, the dream killer wouldn't allow it. Nope, the dream killer won't allow it. And she heard him one time. She's like, I'm not a dream killer. It's just trucks and all these dumb ideas you have. And he's like, that's what the dreams are, babe. You're killing my dream.
I have a dream enabler. She's great. No, honestly, she throws herself into it. That F-250 I just bought, she was like, if you want the truck, let's get the truck. Nice. So I love it. And she's also pretty good with the wrench, and she loves getting under stuff and figuring it out. And whether it's a motorcycle or old truck, she's got her own little collection of stuff going too once in a while. Golf carts and old bicycles and stuff. So my wife is super understanding and loves it and gets it and realizes, it's about the experience and not necessarily about, who has the longest work week.
Yeah, that's cool. You're a lucky man, and it sounds like you are aware of that. So when you have these vehicles all over, you have this format. Why, riddle me this, why aren't you jumping on a plane with mama and driving things home? Is it I want it to make it home, and I don't want to not make it home because my wife likes that we can drive them and risking driving an 84 F-250 from upstate Montana to Florida is probably something that's might not be attainable?
Really good point. And that's why I actually just bought that F-250 is to do a little more longer drives, throw a camper shell on that and get to some events, right? I haven't been doing that enough with Truck Rodeo, but that's the intent. I'm also smart enough, but it ain't my first rodeo, right? I know that it hasn't been shake down a little bit. I don't want to be the guy to shake it down without someone nearby. So that's a little bit what we're doing right now. But yeah, and also cleaning house on, right? That F100 I have in California, I think I worked a deal with my buddy on that. It's going to go in good hands. And, as I've always said, I want less, better junk. And I think we're slowly starting to get there. But and to the point we talked about earlier, that's where I would like to go is I would love to jump in truck and I'll rip to Indianapolis and we'll go to the Mecum Indy auction, right? Do the same thing for Houston and different things that are going along. Like Solomon Lunger is planning that big, I think a Route 66 a rally this summer as well. There's some pretty cool things starting to come up in that world where I think, it's sort of been, I'm a motorcycle guy and it's easy to jump on a bike and do that. I don't really know how to do that with trucks, especially Missouri guy. We don't have sort of the overlanding, places that you guys do out there. And it's sort of, gravel roads and shooting shotguns and stuff. And that works. But I feel like there's a little more organization that's starting to come into road trips. And you mentioned it earlier, and starting to see it a little bit from the Porsche world too, right? Those guys are doing their rallies. They're doing really, really well. I think that's going to start to extend into the truck world where, maybe we are, caravanning out to Dino's Get Down in the fall this year sort of stuff. I'm starting to hope that maybe Truck Rodeo can be a part of that.
So if I think you're right on. I think people are starting to figure out. We've been fortunate enough to this Yellowstone truck here. We took it 12,000 miles, different years, not one trip, but I took it to Texas 3 years. I took it to Cali 2 or 3 years. So yeah, some long drives across, state lines and driving to shows. It was a lot. There was some stress. It was fun though. We started with like 5 the first year. We did it, I think 6 years straight. And what happened was it would get bigger and bigger, which was better. But then it was like more stress. It was like I don't know. It was just like all these people and you're kind of like, damn, man, if something happens and when these people break down. So it can be stressful, but life's an adventure. It's probably a little bit funner to do when you're a little younger. I don't know what happens. You get a little older. You're like, hey, I'll just take the newer truck with the trailer and put it up. I know I could make it. Same. My wife, I've always thought, oh man, I'd love to have like a 75 Winnebago with a new Duramax in there, and let's restore it and travel across the world, babe. And then, it's like, hey, common sense. And it's like, maybe we just buy a newer, vehicle or something like that. But yeah, so it's always an adventure, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So on your 84, would you say, are people keeping 460s? Like, would you put a newer Coyote or a Godzilla and something like that? And why would you not?
Yeah, I think so. They're keeping them. There's a lot of tired 460s out there. Godzilla swaps are getting a lot more common. Um, I'm probably not at that stage, and I'll be honest, like I'm not a blue chip builder driver guy, and I've been fortunate enough to drive some of these $200,000-$300,000 trucks, and they're amazing, but I haven't got there yet, right? And so, honestly, yeah, I would love to throw a Vortec in my Scout, quite frankly. But where we are right now is I'm focused on Truck Rodeo, and that could be where we go with that. But no, I think you're right. 460s are out there. A lot of folks are doing easy swaps, and those Godzillas are really, really easily available, and the guys that swap them out are pretty available too.
Yeah, if you need a guy, I got Matco. He's a Ford guy, and Stephen Matco. He was out at Barrett. He's a really smart guy who has really taken those Coyotes and those Godzilla swaps and made it happen. So I do think I know Scout, Scout everything, Scout anything. Those guys up in Ames, they do a lot of LS swaps, readily available. And talk about giving your vehicle a whole nother lease on life.
Yeah, and I think I'm there for that Scout for sure. Not if I didn't just buy that truck, that would be the next thing I would do. Actually, is I like that Scout. It actually came from Pennsylvania, a little over 100,000 miles on it. It's brown, which is kind of rare with that white decal on it. And someone went through a lot of trouble to make it look okay. And I think replacing that engine would be a good next step for that. We get a lot of joy out of it right now. And like I said, I've had those things, and there's ones that you can run hard, and there's ones that you want to take care of, right? And this is the one I think we're going to try to take care of.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Again, our format is Chev GM base, but I feel like just classic metal is classic metal, and I can appreciate it. I love it. I love seeing all different types, ups and downs and lefts and rights, and the colors and Scout. We look at some of the different things that Scouts did, the Volkswagen interiors, the Porsche interiors, the Scout interiors, the Ford interiors. And I just think that there's a lot to pull from that 70s avocado style fridge and, Berber carpet, and where we grew up from, where we're from, and then bringing that all together and building these vehicles. And then people really just relate, and they just, they walk up and they're just like, oh my God, this is like what you did here is you brought like 7 different memories into one vehicle, and they got to have it. They want it, and they want to, bring it together. And the metal is part of that. So we're such a car culture, truck culture. And I think what you guys are doing is really just, again, it's the vibe. I love your vibe. I love it's not like I think try to keep it classy the way you have, please. Meaning complimentary to you. I can be on your page and you could be selling me on something and I don't even really realize it. So that flow is what's cool about Truck Rodeo, and what you're doing with that. And again, you could almost say, hey, Truck Rodeo, it's not our first rodeo, and your marketing and your marketing ability and what you've done with that is that culture, that scene, that vibe. It's like flipping open an old magazine from the late 70s, the 80s, and you see like an ad and you're like, all right, this is pretty bitchin'.
That's really, really cool to hear, Ronnie. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, small things like that sort of echo what you just said. that truck show we did in Phoenix, the folks who came up to me and were like, "Hey, we've been to a lot of car shows, and they always see the truck coming and they point us the other way, right? It's like, all the Camaros coming this way, and the truck they're sitting over there." And they're like, "We're in the front row," and that's kind of cool. Like families coming up to me and saying that, and that was, I don't know, it meant a lot. That and things like that stretched F-250 Frankenstein that we listed the other day. I don't know if you follow that, but that was a dually 84, I think it was. An old timer had stretched the frame and make a conversion, a club cab out of it, right? And so a woman in Wisconsin bought it 5, 6, 7 years ago, $19,000. She was a caretaker of it. She took it to vintage fairs and things like that, road trips and camping things with her daughter, and she sold it 8, 9 years later for the same amount, 19 grand. We posted that 3 days before Christmas. She was like, "Hey, yeah, I want a little money to get me through Christmas time, and not the best time to sell a truck in Wisconsin, in dead of December." But guess what? We got like 3 million views off of that, and it went to somebody who's going to appreciate it, who has a hell of a collection, who paid more than fair price for that, and over asking amount. And those sort of things, like I don't know, I've always, to the point you made earlier, like, it was a good bridge between sort of the country mouse and the city mouse a little bit, right? And I feel like that's what Truck Rodeo is somewhat. I talk about the old trucks I used to pull out of Southern Illinois and go to my little Matchbox bar in Chicago where all the cab drivers and the ad guys and the musicians all hung out. Only sat like 23 people. But I'd drive my old trucks there, and the old timers would tell me the stories about them, and I'd flip them throughout the summer. But those sort of stories are what inspired this. And like I said, that story about the bullnose of the stretch and the woman who owned that, who was like, "Man, I needed the money, and I got some money, and it went to someone who can appreciate it and who's going to be a good caretaker." I talked to the guy who built it, Rich, in Northern Illinois, and he's a hell of a character too, a drag racer. And we're building a story around that. But those are the sort of stuff, like, when you have the good and bad days, you're like, "Oh man, I just worked 12 hours and I got 300 views on that," and you have the good days. These are the good days and what I remember. And it's pretty cool. And it's a weird little niche, but in the back of my mind, I always thought there's a little space that could be figured out here. And I think it's where we are. And it's cool. Like guys like you, that I know who you are and what you've been doing for decades, right? As I was a guy buying that old C10. Be talking to you on our podcast is pretty rad, and it sort of helps me understand, like, we could keep going, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can, and I appreciate that. And ultimately, there's no shortage of stories. They're not going anywhere. People are going to want them for decades. So finding and being that bridge is part of it, and it's rewarding. And people, you can't always put a value on that, but being part of that and experiencing that, and people make it. I think in my full-time job, people drive me crazy. Some of the people that actually call us, and then I come here and I get to deal with truck people, and it offsets it, tremendously. So dealing with people who are just prideful in their truck, prideful in something that they have. And another thing that has been brought up a lot, and I think adds to that story, is you can have somebody who's got maybe an 84 F-250 that they just got, from out of state, and they're so happy that they got it, and they've got, let's just say they've got a whole whopping 10, 15 grand in this truck, and they could be at a truck show parked right next to somebody who's got 250,000 in a truck, and those two guys or families can sit there and break bread and talk about one another's things. And so in the world that we live in now, having that to where people can establish human relations, and maybe there's a number exchange, maybe there's not, but it's like, hey, we just sat there and talked to that guy. He had a really cool truck, and he had all this money in his truck, and he liked my old beat up 84 more than he liked his truck. And you're like, wow, that's just such a powerful thing that I don't think we talk about enough, is where the metal will bring you together, and it's that experience. And that's a hard thing to just put into a monetary value, but we can do that in the truck world. And I think the automotive world in general, I don't know that it's that way in the Corvette world or the Camaro Porsche world as much, but I do know it is in the truck world for sure.
Yeah, you're right. And it goes back to I don't have a connection to a Porsche or a supercar, right? Or a brand new Corvette. I do have a connection to that 68 C10 because my old man used to spit his Redman out the window. And so I think that's what it is. But you're right. It amazes me. And, again, been around super expensive trucks and not super expensive trucks and everything in between. But it amazes me everyone gathers around the trucks, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where it happens, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of impressive things from the supercars. There's a lot of ahs and oohs. There's a lot of facts and datas and specs. Old truck's an old truck, right? It's got only got 3 or 4 things you can ask about it.
Yeah. What motor? Still, how many shocks have been changed out on it? And could be original. Whatever happened
automatic?
to 68? Did your dad's 68 go down the road, or whatever happened to it?
Oh, oh, my old man was a character. So my old man traded that 68 for a 79 Lincoln Continental.
Oh,
Yeah, he went in a little cowboy classic
nice.
towards the end there. So yeah, and he did because my old man was a character. So he was a geologist and a farmer in Missouri. So near Hannibal, Missouri, a small town called New London, about 900 people. But anyway, he had that 68. And my parents divorced, and so he was going to get him a Lincoln Continental, and he did. And then he started dating a truck driver who she drove I think she drove an 87 K10. So we had both those in the driveway. So yeah.
I love
so
it.
He traded the 68 in on the Lincoln Continental. Mark V.
He started dating a female truck driver, obviously, that was driving a K10. Yeah. Can you imagine
pictures?
You were a young man and you're like, hey, Mom, Dad's got a new girlfriend. Her name is Louise. She smokes Mark Red. She drives a 78 Pete, and she's got an 87. Yeah.
He called her Hagar the Horrible.
Oh my God.
That's a whole other thing. But yeah, and he ran Alice Chalmers tractors and wore cowboy boots and tobacco, Redman tobacco. So that's where I sort of, I get a little appreciation for that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, we all grew up with that, and whether we liked it or not, our dads influenced us, our grandpas and our uncles, and good time to be a kid, good time to be raised up in the 70s and the 80s, and
right.
Yeah, for sure, we were lucky. So, well, I'm going to take you out. You got anything that you want to share with the audience? Anything upcoming? Where are you going to be throughout 2026? Are you going to do the truck show again? He alluded to it, you guys. We ran over there, dropped off some Doja mats. There's a place in Phoenix called the Dirty Drummer. It's been there forever. There's actually at one point like 3 or 4 of them throughout the valley. And you guys had about 70 trucks, I think, that all varieties that kind of came into the parking lot that night. Are you going to continue that to do that? And what's next for you guys coming up? You got any other big plans?
Yeah, no. So exactly, we did that truck show at the Dirty Drummer. That was sort of a kickoff to Barrett Jackson last fall. I think we have something like that planned that we're finalizing here in the spring. That'll be very similar. And then also that truck show went off so well, I think you can see more of those. And we're actually, if people would like to tell us where honky tonks exist in different parts of the nation that would make for a good truck rodeo truck show, we're more than willing to come and set that up. So I think we're going to put a little more calories there. We've got some hats we're putting together that will replace the Captain Fulton. And then we also will be at a lot of auctions in 2026. So possibility of GAA Classics, which is a little sleeper auction in Greensboro next weekend, and then the Meekums and the Barrett Jacksons.
Okay. Well, for you guys, obviously, if you don't already, follow Truck Rodeo. Kyle, we appreciate your time. Keep doing what you're doing. If we can help you, at any way along the way, just let us know.
Thanks a lot, C10 Nation.
That's a wrap. Kyle from Truck Rodeo. Again, if you haven't already, check him out. Love his format, love his style. Might be a little more Ford heavy than the C10 Nation is used to, but I think it's good to see all types. I think it kind of enhances our brain on what else we're seeing and what else is going on out in the truck world. So I like that part of it. I like having to kind of think outside the box and expand what we see all the time when we go to truck shows that we're seeing the same stuff. I like to have a little variety. So check out Truck Rodeo if you don't already. We appreciate it. Kyle, once again, great sitting down with you. For you guys locally, reunion. We are going to wrap things up pretty quick for vendors and close it up for trucks and cars. So if you haven't registered, please do that right away, because we are going to wrap things up on registration for both vendors and participants. Okay? As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Do what you do. Stay out of trouble. Late.